All right, I think we're ready to start today. Our real goal today was talking about engaging all students. So how can we engage all students in our classrooms? So actually in DataWorks, we came up with it. We even call it the student engagement poster. So I'm just going to go over this very quickly, and then we'll go over it more in detail because I'm going to use it during the training because I want the audience to be engaged. So the first strategy is pronounce with me. I'm going to ask you to read things with me. Or of course, you're going to ask your students to read things with you. And let's just do one right here. So pronounce with me. I'm going to do it first, and you're going to say after me. And I see Brian in the audience out there, so you can join in with me. Let me do this first. Explicit direct instruction. Brian, class, let's join in. Go. Explicit
Explicit
direct
direct
instruction.
instruction.
Very good. So that's the way we would do it in the classroom. We want our kids to be able to say the new difficult academic words that are in the lesson. And usually I say turn to your partner and say the word twice because I want that repetition and you practice at saying it. If you have English learners, this is a great way to get listening and speaking objectives in the classroom because they're talking and speaking in English and using, the language that you're providing them. All right, the next one we do is called Track with Me and Read with Me. We've got videos and everything on this later, but just for right now, let's just go over them quickly. The track means that we pre-read for the students and then they read after. Now, this pre-reading is super important for very young students because they're not good readers yet. So you're reading and you're reading slowly, and I want them to look at the words, and then they're going to read afterwards. And this, again, is important if you've got English learners. You're going to pre-read, they hear the words, and then they're going to say it together as the whole class. So let's just pretend I've got this sentence here. Students, look up here. Now remember, when we do the pronunciation, the tracked reading, we always have them look at the words because we're supporting reading fluency at the same time, not just pure listening and speaking, but I want them to be able to read the words. Okay, so I'm going to read first. Your eyes should be following these words. Creating academic student engagement. Class, let's read. Go. Creating
Creating
academic
academic
student
student
engagement.
engagement.
Oh, that's so funny, Brian, because the Zoom video has that delay in it. If we're saying it together, it just sounds like a delay. Okay, so you're going to use this all the time. All right, so I think I'm going to stop right here. So a little checking for understanding. So I've got Brian here. I want you to think for a second. So which one of these, or do you think this could help students you are working with? Which one do you think could help? The teaching the words or going all the way to the sentence level or both?
Both.
Okay, why are you selecting that?
Um, because they need to understand, they need to recognize the word, and then they also need to know how to use that word in context.
Yeah, in bigger sentences. And
Yeah.
really, we're doing two things. We're supporting reading at the word level and reading
hmm
at the sentence level. We
Okay.
want both of them. If you heard me, I said, and why did you say that? That's a technique. Justify your answer. I'll be doing that later, and you should be doing it as a teacher, too. Every answer must be justified, must be justified.
Okay.
Okay, the next one's called Gesture with Me. Why don't we read it together, Brian? Ready? Let's read. Go. Gesture with
Gesture with
me.
me.
Okay, gesture with me. There are certain gestures that help us remember stuff. Let me give you an easy one for prefixes. These are letters. So a prefix, look at my hands, a prefix is a letter or letters at the beginning of a word that change its meaning. Okay, Brian, we're going to do it together. Okay, get your hands up. A prefix is a letter
Letter.
or letters at the beginning of a word that change its meaning. Okay, now we're going to say it and do the
Okay.
gesture at the same time. Let's say it together. Ready?
Okay.
A prefix
Prefix.
is a
A
letter
letter
or
or
letters
letters.
at the beginning of a word
Beginning of a word
to change its meaning.
to change its meaning.
Yeah, like rewrite, rethink, redo, repaint. Re means do it again. Paint means to paint it, and repaint means paint it again.
Mhm.
Okay, so those are gestures. These help kids learn, basically. Now, you're giving information for English learners. For young students, they can remember the gesture if they're not good readers, and it's actually a brain strategy to help you remember. All right, the
Hmm.
next one is pair share. In EDI, Explicit Direct Instruction, we pair share every question. That means you're going to ask the question, turn to your partner, explain to your partner, and then have the partner come back. And that's why we've got this A to B and B to A. That really could be left to right, right to left, because I want both partners to talk. Okay,
Okay.
so we're talking about creating engagement. This is how you create engagement, so pair shares. And later I'll give you some more examples, but I'm just going to give you one reason why pair share is important. Okay, now listen to this. When you do pair shares, every student answers every question for the whole year, even if you don't call on them. And Brian, you've seen a lot of classes. We tend to call the same kids all the time,
Yes.
usually the ones in the front,
Yeah.
and the other students are not actually coming up with an answer. Now, during the pair share, even if you don't call someone, they're being forced to participate. And we've got another one down here, complete sentences. So when we pair share, we're going to say what? The noun in the sentence is. The character trait in the passage is. So we're always going to have complete sentences. We use sentence frames every time. Every kid's going to participate, and we're going to do the pair shares. Now, let me go back. We were going to say, how do we create student engagement? This is how we do it. We have the whole class do things, read things, pair share with their partner, answer questions. All right, let's go to the next one. Brian, we're going to read it together. Ready? Attention
Attention
signal.
signal.
Okay, so when you do a lot of pair shares, you need a signal to bring the kids back to you, to bring the students back. This is the DataWorks one for elementary school. If I say eyes front, the class says back straight. Let's try it, Brian. I'm the teacher. Eyes front, what do you say?
Back straight.
And what happens when the kids do that? Usually they sit right up, they look right at you. It's really good for young students. Older
Absolutely.
students, maybe we have class, yes, yes. That's a pretty good one. 1, 2, eyes on you. 1, 2, 3, eyes on me. You can come up with your own, but it's good to have one, and it's a great classroom management strategy. How do you get the kids to
Absolutely.
look at you? You have a signal, and you train your students to do it. You train them to do it. Okay, let's read the next one, Brian, together. Ready with me? Go. Whiteboards.
Whiteboards.
Okay, I think we all know what whiteboards are. They're the little plastic boards we hold up. We write answers on them with a marking pen. Okay.
Yes.
Now, the power of the whiteboards is every student has to show an answer. Not
Mhm.
the 3 kids you call. It's 100% class participation. And you should have some little phrases like, I'm waiting for 3 boards. I'm waiting for 2. I'm waiting for 1 more. We're not going to move on till I see all the boards. And pretty soon the kids are saying, get your boards up, get your boards up. And so then what? Then we've got all the boards up. Okay, so I'm just going to say for young elementary students, we have a couple of other boards. You can use this like yes, no. I hope you can see it up there, the yes, no boards.
Yes.
So even if they can't write an answer, they can show you an answer. And even
Okay.
for kindergarten, we have a red ball and a green ball, a circle, and they just have you show your answer. Very quick, and you can teach very quickly with whiteboards.
Okay.
Now, you get a couple of advantages. Everyone has to participate. Now, you as the teacher, you know right away if I need to reteach or if I'm having problems. If I see a lot of errors, actually our rule in DataWorks is 80%. We're trying to get 80% correct answers. If we have less than that, it's boards down and reteach. And
Mhm.
also, sometimes you can see a specific error and you can give corrective feedback. Okay, so Brian, I think we need a little something right here. So see if you can tell me something about either pair shares or whiteboards, just the last couple things I did in here. What is something you think would really help you be a better teacher or would help your students learn?
Student engagement through the pair sharing because now they're engaging with one another and both would have an opportunity to share. And through the whiteboards, we're ensuring that not only is every student participating, but that every student is correct or that we have missed something within a certain lesson and need to begin reteaching.
Yeah, we're better ready to reteach if we need to. The boards may not all be correct when they come up, but if you've got 80%, you can give corrective feedback to those individual ones. Corrective feedback to the individual
Corrective
ones.
feedback.
Okay, and we did the last one already, the complete sentences. And the complete sentences have to have academic language. I think I told you a minute ago we use sentence frames. The character in the passage is, the setting is. And let's get those other words. The character in the passage, in the excerpt, in the literary work. We can't just be using in the story. That's okay
Mhm.
for K or first grade, but as we move up, we're moving this language up. And I'm telling you one reason this is so important, Brian, because the tests use this type of language.
Absolutely.
You've probably heard the phrase, state tests are tests of academic English.
Yep.
It's not playground English. Okay? And I did have an English learner one time said he couldn't answer the question because it said, who is the something in the passage? And he didn't know what the word passage meant. No, we should have used that all along. The character in the passage, the setting in the passage, in the excerpt. So complete sentences and academic vocabularies. Not just that you wrote, my answer is B. No, you're going to say what? Cinderella is the character because, and you're going to justify she's talking and doing something in the story. Okay, let me just do one more question here. So, Brian, tell me something about complete sentences. How would you use that? What would be some of the advantage of complete sentences?
An advantage of complete sentences is the student being able to use academic language and tie that language with what's going on with whatever concept they're learning,
Yeah. Applying the academic language to the lesson.
applying the
Most
academic language to the
yeah,
lesson.
applying it and using it. And we want the students to start talking at a higher level. Let's see, distinguish is one that's in a lot of lessons. Determine, a lot of standards, determine the phrase or something. So we don't want to say to the kids, we're just going to figure this out. No, we're going to determine. We're going to distinguish. We're going to tell the difference. Let's start using this new language. And I just say, Brian, I just noticed you answered in a complete sentence. You started to say, oh, one of the reasons for using complete sentences is you're already getting trained. I tell you, that happens with the students also. Once you start doing this complete sentences, they start using it. And let me just tell you that I think you probably already know the secret. When I say, who is the character in the passage, you're going to answer, the character in the passage is. The complete sentence comes from the question, doesn't it? Who is the
Absolutely.
character in the passage? The character in the passage is. Eventually, the students should be able to come up with their own complete sentences. I'll
Gotcha.
just give you one example from a state test. It said, what is the reason the author used the figurative language? And you had to write an open-ended answer, either 2 points, 1 point, or 0 points. To get 2 points, you had to start with, the author used figurative language because. You had to have that complete sentence. You couldn't just say a 1 or 2 word answer. And I was kind of surprised that even the state tests are requiring a rephrase of the question when they want you to compose your own answer. So I think we've got some good things here with student engagement. It works for every grade level. It works in every content level. It could be K all the way to college. We want the people to be engaged. And I use it for training with adults. Brian, we're using it right now. You're reading with me. Think how boring this would be if I just read these to you and you were listening for 20 minutes. It's
Yeah.
not. And then when you start having pair shares, we're not using pair shares today because we're not practicing. We don't have a big enough crowd to do it. But when you use
Okay.
pair shares, you're going to find that the pair shares are really engaging while you're talking with somebody. Like another teacher during a training is actually, it's almost more engaging than listening to me. You're actually thinking about it and practicing it. And I'll give you one more thing about the brain research. When you pair share, you're actually repeating and thinking about it. It's helping you learn. It's not just that you're doing a mechanical process, you're actually learning. So I think that's going to be the end of our first part here. Student engagement, there's a lot more of this with videos and other stuff, but if we do this every single time, we can have every student engaged all the time in any content, K-12 and even to college, the military, medical, it doesn't matter what, we can do it. So you've got some great tips right now, and Brian, you've given me a couple of answers. Why don't you give me one takeaway at the end? What is something you've learned here about student engagement?
It's essential to learning. It's essential to quality instruction. And this list gives educators a solid foundation of options to work with.
Yeah, these are the ways you really create engagement. You say, I wish the kids would be engaged. No, this is how you make them engage. And I'm just going to add one more thing. In EDI, we would never call these optional strategies. This is how you should teach all the time. You should always pronounce words. You should always pair share. Use whiteboards as much as you can because it forces kids to do it in the complete sentences. All right, so I think that's going to be it for right now. We'll come up with another little bit later. And so long from Brian and John at DataWorks. Bye-bye.